everybody here today, and those of us virtually, welcome. We are continuing today with our ongoing educational series. This will be, I believe, our fifth, featuring a subject matter expert that we are very excited to have with us this morning. The subject today we'll be talking about is growing up digital, marketing to kids in a tech-forward world. I'm very excited to the speaker we're going to be presenting you today. Actually, both ladies here, which would be Nerz and Rebecca Presler of MLN Research here in Raleigh. We've had the pleasure of working with these ladies for a long period of time. Some of the foremost experts that are very sought out by numerous consumer packaged goods and toy companies that look to seek the greatest insights into children. Today's topic, talking about Gen Z, or the new children growing up, the first generation in a tech-forward world. These ladies, I think, are going to be, everybody should be in store for an exciting presentation today to learn a great deal about the buying power that children have today, the influence that they're seeing, and how to better market to that group. So, without further ado, may I recommend and bring to you forward the pleasure of Nerz and Rebecca Presler.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks to all of you for joining us and for the opportunity to talk a little bit about kids and marketing. And of course, let me begin first by thanking Brett and Michelle and the entire L&E research team who really did such a fantastic job putting all this together and coordinating all of this. We appreciate that a lot, and so thank you for all of that as well. We've got a lot to share about marketing and advertising to kids. We also want to make sure we leave a little bit of time at the end, maybe to talk a little bit about for some questions and answers, specifically about how we go about the sort of mechanics and logistics of doing children's research. So be assured that that will happen a little bit toward the end.
So without any further ado, we are so happy and excited to be here to talk to you about one of our absolute favorite subjects, working with kids. So.
Well, we've often said over the years that we probably wouldn't be in this business if it weren't for the fact that we were working with children.
They really do, and say some of the funniest things when they're in that focus group room with us. And over the years, we have seen and smelled and heard about probably every kind of body fluid that you can possibly imagine. Like, if your mind goes there, we've seen it.
Mm-hmm. I once had a little boy who pulled out a loose tooth during a group. And when I asked him if he wanted to go and get himself cleaned up, he said, "Nah, I like drinking my own blood."
And actually, last week, I was doing a one-on-one interview with a little boy, and I told him he was very smart. And he said, "Yeah, I know, that's why my head is so big."
And recently, a little girl said to me that she had nothing more to say because her lips were too tired from talking.
So really, when you're working with kids, especially in the research setting, you have to expect the unexpected. You have to have eyes in the back of your head, and you have to be able to wear a lot of different hats, because at one and the same time, you are the traffic cop, you're the time teacher, you're the timekeeper, rather, the teacher, the student, the idea protector, of course, the question asker, and occasionally the coach or anything else that a kid might need.
So we could probably spend the hour talking about how to conduct research, setting it up, the logistics of it, executing it, which of course is a fascinating subject in and of itself. But we thought it might be a little bit more interesting today to talk a bit about the current generation of kids that we're actually working with right now in the research setting, and the generation that's coming up after them, as well as some kid insights that remain constant over time, as well as some insights that are very specific to today's children. And then to sort of move into sharing some thoughts on really an incredibly diverse and clever array of marketing strategies that are currently being implemented to target kids.
And really new strategies as well.
So I'm going to get out of here and let
Excellent.
it to her.
So this is where we're going to start, is who the heck are these kids today? And we thought we would start off by showing you a little video to set the stage that Megan is setting up right now. So here we go.
In a world where a little old lady whispering hush would never be heard, comes a book for our time.
In the bright, buzzing room, there was an iPad and a kid playing Doom, and a screensaver of a bird launching over the moon. And there were 3 little nooks with 10,000 books, and a huge LCD Wi-Fi HD TV with Bose 5.1, 6 remotes, and 3D. And a BlackBerry ringing with Eminem singing,
Yo, yo.
and a new Facebook friend, and texts with no end, and a viral clip of a cat doing flips, and the bings, bongs, and beeps of emails and tweets, and a fed-up old woman who was trying to sleep. Good night, iPad. Good night, Doom. Good night, bird launching over the moon. Good night, nooks and digital books. Good night, Eminem.
Yo.
Good night, Facebook friend. Good night, LOLs. Good night, MP3s. Good night, LCD, Wi-Fi, HD TV. Good night, remotes and Netflix streams. Androids, apps, and glowing screens. Good night, plugs and power lights that guide us to pee in the darkness of night. Good night, buzzing. Good night, beeps. Good night, everybody who should be asleep. Good night, pop stars. Good night, MacBook Air. Good night, gadgets everywhere.
So of course that is a parody of Goodnight Moon, which we all know from reading to our own children or being read to. But it really is not too far from the truth of today. So to start with this first group of kids, we have from age 6 to 12, that's what we're talking to mainly, Megan and I, in our research setting. And they're the youngest of what's commonly referred to now as Generation Z. And they're the little Z's because they're on the younger end of that generation, and their parents are the younger half of Generation X. And right behind them, 5 and under, are kids who are the latest named generation, Generation Alpha. And these kids are being born to parents who represent the older half of millennials, like myself. And here are a few important big overalls for these 12 and under kids. They come from smaller families. So they have 1 sibling, maybe 2, or often are only children. Most of their moms work outside of the home. They live tightly scheduled, highly monitored lives. So they wake up in the morning, they go to school, and then they're instantly whisked to karate practice or ballet or tutoring or parent-organized play dates. So they have very little free time. They do still play outside, but they don't wander very far from home, and that's really because of the parameters that are put on them by their parents. One interesting study that has been done recently was by Roger Hart, and it was actually a massive 30-year longitudinal study about play and place, and it found that from the 1970s into about a decade ago, the freedom for which a child could move around outside of their home has gone from miles to basically the perimeter of their house. So that really exemplifies how crazy it is and how different it is from the baby boomers and Gen X and even early millennials. But what's probably most interesting and important about this generation is that they are known as digital natives, meaning that they have never known a world without the internet. They are highly tech fluent, and they expect technology to simply work. We do a lot of research with technology and apps and new digital experiences, and whenever we're in a briefing with a client, we're always amazed by the technology, and we're like, oh my God, the kids are gonna flip out when they see this. But they expect it. They're expecting this constant innovation, and they're rarely surprised. So they look at this new piece of tech, and they're like, oh yeah, that's nice. But it's not a surprise to them. And over 60% of kids, 3 to 5, can turn on a computer, but 15% of them can tie a shoelace. So that just goes to tell you how incredibly important the digital landscape is for them. And so, unsurprisingly, by the time that they're 4 or 5 years old, they're lobbying hard for a smartphone from their parents because they've been using theirs, their parents, and now they want their own apps and they want to use YouTube whenever they can. And they live in a world where everything physical has a digital counterpart, and it's not just toys, which you expect. It's cereal boxes, it's apparel. So they see that smartphone or that smart device as being their key into the bigger world. And they spend a lot of time in front of screens. So the average kid who is 8 years old or younger spends 7 hours with screen media. And they use multiple screens at once. They're watching TV, and at the same time they're playing app games, or they're playing console games, and they have YouTube next to them on the tablet on the floor of the playroom. And this is really interesting. At a younger age, more and more of these kids are becoming nearsighted, and they're requiring glasses. And a lot of research is suggesting that it is actually because they have been using these screens since the time that their eyes were developing. We think that if you would ask an average kid, they would say he or she would rather watch a YouTube video than read a book. And this generation of kids, there's more research to suggest that their brains are actually structurally different than those of earlier generations, meaning that they've become so wired to comprehend and see these highly sophisticated and complex imageries that their brains are completely different. And basically it means that the part of their brain that's responsible for visual ability is far more developed than it has been before. And that means that they're better visual learners than auditory learners. So further research suggests that they process information faster, but they have an attention span that is getting shorter and shorter. And so it's very hard to keep the attention of a kid who's under 12. In fact, they now say that it's about an 8-second attention span, which is shorter than that of a goldfish. But of course, it's not true of all of us. You know, we always think it's funny when you go out to a focus group waiting room when you're doing focus groups with adults, and you know they used to be chit-chatting and reading magazines and talking to everyone else, and now you go down and they're in their iPhones. So, but kids, they do have a difficulty focusing and processing information because their brains are being rewired to expect information in small, bite-sized pieces. And speaking of small, bite-sized pieces, this age group of kids are communicating with symbols and images, with the emojis, with pictures. You know, Snapchat is a very, very popular app with Gen Z, and they like to communicate fast. They still do prefer to watch traditional television, and in fact, the average kid in the US watches 16,000 commercials a year. 16,000 a year. But more and more kids are watching content and advertising on branded websites like YouTube and Barbie.com, Lego.com, Hasbro, and also through streaming video services like Netflix and Hulu. And because of this advertising that they're seeing on places like Hulu and on branded websites and on traditional TV, they start to influence everything from what gets eaten in their household to what gets watched on the television, even as far as to where families vacation. You know, we have Disney Cruise Lines, but one of the really interesting things that's popped up over the last I guess it would be a year and a half now, are these vacations by Disney, and there's this Norwegian one that is selling out all over the place, and it's because it's frozen themed. And so if a kid wants to go to Norway all of a sudden, but because of that frozen thing. And they do show a preference for branded products at a younger age. So they're aware of Lego, and they're aware of Xbox, and they're aware of these big toy companies, and they want branded products. Parents are interesting here, especially when you get into this older millennial generation, because they are so focused on what kids eat nowadays. And they want healthy kids' foods, but they want it for a cheap price. And one interesting thing that happened last week was Whole Foods announced this initiative to open these new stores that are aimed at millennials. And actually, they've gotten a ton of negative backlash for it, but they want to bring down the cost of the products and create this new line of stores specifically for millennial shoppers and for their kids. So much is being shaped around what is happening here in the household. Processed foods are totally out. It's all about locally grown, organic foods, farmers markets, because food is beginning to be regarded as a social and a cultural experience. Parents are teaching their kids how to cook. Kids are interested in cooking and getting that hands-on experience. This is one of my favorite findings about kids and food and families, is that dads now think that they have much more influence on meals, decisions, and grocery shopping. But moms disagree. Moms will disagree, yeah, you see it. And they say, no, I'm the primary decision maker, and I make the decisions on things food related for my kids. So, in a way, this Generation Z and Generation Alpha have really been shaped by the recession and by joblessness and by watching older siblings and older cousins move back home. And it's affected them in a really interesting way that we're starting to see as they become aware of money and how to spend it. That this generation looks like it's going to turn out to be more browsers than buyers, which has a huge effect on marketing. And we see this in our focus groups a lot because kids are strategizing how to get their parents to buy the things that they want by looking for deals and sales and coupons online, in newspapers. A kid who has a PlayStation 3 at home, his mom and dad don't want him to have an Xbox too, but he or she wants the Xbox. And so they know that the only way that they could possibly get this into their household is by convincing their parents and finding the best deal. So they're on the hunt for that. And they really are super savvy. So despite the fact that parents, events, and experiences in the environment shape kids from their earliest stages of development, there are some really basic stages that all kids go through as they mature and become cognitively more aware. And so that's where we're moving to next. There are some things that really never change. How they think, how they see the world, how they process information, as well as their own experiences help us to understand how they perceive themselves as consumers, which is the most important insight, because you have to have respect for kids. And here are the big universal truths. Kids are visual. More of them prefer to learn visually than any other way, and that was the case long before screen time regulations came into effect. They want variety and choice. They've been brought up by a generation of parents who do feel like it's their responsibility to provide choices and options to their children, and it's a core value, really, this choice. They love secrets and surprises. They want the new and different. Kids are imitators and emulators. They are always watching their parents and taking cues from the grown-ups and older siblings that are around them. And they're always striving to be older, to be bigger, to be smarter, to be stronger. They aspire higher. They're pack rats. They love to get and to gather, to accumulate and to collect. And my personal favorite is that they love to laugh. And humor is so important with kids. It's so central, and oftentimes it's really overlooked, but kids love to laugh. There's so much joy there. So There are also insights that are particular to younger kids. Younger kids are like 100% egocentric. I mean, they think the world was made just for them. And again, it's not surprising because they haven't reached school yet. So they're still in this age group where it's all about who's around them and their family, and they don't know a lot about the outside world. So it's all about them. They get to see an imagination dominate the younger child's world because that's where the brain development is happening. But at the same time, these younger children are so literal-minded. So they're able to live in a fantasy world, but when you're talking with them, you have to be they're thinking of things in such a concrete way. Megan has a really funny story, actually, of a group that she was doing a couple of years ago where she was talking about puppy love to a group of 5 and 6-year-olds, and they all thought she was talking about 2 puppies who were in love with each other. So they're so cute, but they're thinking in concrete terms. And finally, younger kids have just a tremendous need for safety and security. So again, it goes back to that closed world they're in. They're not in school yet. They know their mom, and they know their dad, and they know their grandparents and siblings. But that safe, secure, close world of home and that familiarity of daily life is really the best place in the world for them, and that's where they're most comfortable. So likewise, older kids have new insights that are coming as they gain years. As they age, the logic and reasoning skills start to develop fully, and right here when I'm talking about older kids, I'm talking about really 7 to 12. So their logic and reasoning skills are developing. They're looking for realism. So whereas they were very fantasy oriented when they were younger, now they want and they appreciate that real world effect. They start moving away from home and family and towards a more social world of friends and the schoolyard. Social recognition becomes so important. It's like social currency is what we refer to it in groups, and we have boys who come in and they say, yeah, I always have my Lego minifigures in my pocket. And he said, and I take them out in the schoolyard at recess and I show them to my friends and we compare like who we have, and it's sort of like, if I have this really rare gold ninja, then I am vaulted to the top of my group of friends. So it is a lot about social currency as they get older. And they're in a process of transition that partially involves a rejection of things that they liked when they were younger. So you talk to a kid who's 8 or 9 and you ask him about the Power Rangers, and he's like, that is babyish, that is horrible, don't want it. Dora the Explorer and Thomas are suddenly just on the outs with them because they're really rejecting these things that they loved when they were younger. And finally, they're looking for more complexity. They want to feel grown up. So that's older kids. And then there is this very interesting debate about girls and boys and the gender discussion. And it is so controversial. It's a hot topic. And it's been a hot topic actually for years in Europe. And it's just starting over the past few years to become a topic of conversation here in the US as well. I think especially as millennials are becoming parents themselves. And we know girls and boys are different. I mean, they just are. They're not different so much in terms of how they learn or what they learn, but in terms of these real, observable day in and day out characteristics and behaviors. And scientists and bloggers and everyone who has access to a computer is involved in this debate about the differences in brain structure and brain chemistry and brain function. But we actually think the explanation for the differences between genders is really socialization and the fact that hormones do matter. And in terms of what we've experienced as researchers, we have a few insights on gender. In fact, we actually wanted to show, we were thinking about showing a Louis C.K. video. I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Louis C.K. He has a very, very funny bit on the differences between girls and boys, and it is so right on and so true. But because of the language, we decided to hold off on that. But Google it if you want to.
It's on YouTube.
It is on YouTube. It is very funny. But there are some things that we have experienced about boys and girls. So we want to move forward with that a little bit, and understanding that there are many exceptions to the rule. So not all boys are like this, not all girls are like this. But if we're making generalizations, boys are rambunctious and they're physical. And girls do like beauty and harmony and sharing and socializing. And boys play to master and to achieve status and to be better than their friends. They're really competitors, whereas girls are playing more to create and to personalize and to design and to form friendships. Boys love blood and guts and gore. Girls like skipping rope and casting spells and playing dress up. And they love animals and babies and fairy princesses and fashion. Boys fight as bad guys and as good guys. They like to battle to conquer danger and defeat evil. And girls like to adventure too. And they love fantasy worlds, but when they adventure in these different worlds, they're not battling and conquering. They're aiming to right wrongs and to restore harmony. Boys love the ugly and the gross and the slimy and the disgusting, and they're fascinated by functionality and by machinery, backhoes, bulldozers, earth movers, any kind of vehicle, as long as it moves or it moves something. And girls, they like feeling like they're grown up. They want to be in control. They're more sophisticated. They're more independent. And in general, they have better social skills than boys at a younger age. So having this understanding, as well as a certain level of mindfulness about differences in age and gender, these things are really crucial in the creation and the execution of products and marketing programs that are used to target kids, which leads us actually right into the discussion on the diverse array of marketing strategies that are being aimed at today's new generations of kids. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Megan.
Thank you very much.
And yes, I am not the tech person in this in this thing here. So
Yeah, there you go.
very good. Thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Oops. Sorry.
Perfect. Well, good. Thank you. So, of course, I thought I'd just spend a few minutes talking about, when you're talking about marketing to kids, there is, of course, an ethical debate that surrounds marketing activities that are directed and targeted to kids. This controversy is not new at all, and has really been the subject of heated debate since about the early 1970s, back when the Federal Trade Commission was holding hearings about the impact and the effect of advertising on children and children's abilities to differentiate between content, programming, and advertising. At this point, I was a grad student and was involved actually in some of these experimental research programs with kids to help determine, at what age, at what stage in their development, in their cognitive development, could they differentiate between content and advertising? What kind of impact did certain role models, celebrities, characters have on their desire for products? So these were the studies that were going on at the time. Back then it was action for children's television. Now it's advertising for commercial. Right. So there's, a lot of different groups, but this is a controversy that is not new and has been and still is a subject of a great deal of debate. The increasingly sophisticated marketing programs that are aimed at kids today, as well as the internet, of course, has done really nothing but intensify this debate and sort of turn the heat up on the debate. On the one side, you have the purists, and they say there's absolutely no moral, no social, no ethical justification whatsoever for advertising products or marketing to kids. Their perspective is that marketing actually targets emotions, which of course we all know that if your advertising can get an emotional response from your potential customer, that's what you want advertising to do. When it actually can elicit emotions, then it's got the most staying power. Then you've reached your right strategic value target. So, but that part of the argument among purists is that it does achieve this emotional response, and as well, they go on to say that marketing and advertising efforts really promote impulse buying among consumers, especially children, and that it trains kids to choose products for reasons other than the actual value of the product. So, for instance, they choose a cereal because of what's on the back of the cereal box, or they want to get the pizza from Domino's because now we can tweet a pizza, which is just a brand new thing, tweet a pizza, for Domino's. So again, it's sort of the whole idea of the actual value of the product becomes secondary to whatever the promotion is, to whatever the marketing activity is that surrounds the product. There are the other part of the debate, or the other side of within this debate, you have people who say that marketing to kids is actually a useful tool. It's a tool that helps teach critical thinking skills. It's a tool that helps kids in terms of analysis and how to go about the process of evaluating and judging and making decisions about different products. And that ultimately that it helps kids understand what advertising actually is, how advertising actually works, what its intentions are, and then of course how to view it from a critical perspective, from the perspective of critical thinking skills. Now, what's really interesting is that the debate, this whole debate about marketing and advertising to kids has taken a couple of interesting twists, especially over the past couple of years, because there's been a number of marketers who have had some very, very clever marketing programs aimed at promoting healthy behaviors among kids. Oh, so now so if you're not promoting a product that isn't really necessarily in the best interest of kids, but now you're marketing a product that's promoting socially, healthy eating or healthy behavior or socially responsible behavior. How does that change the debate? And it is changing the debate in many ways. Here's a great example. Oops, wrong way. See, this is what so here's a great example. Subway. Subway last year partnered with Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign and the Partnership for a Healthier America by pledging to launch a 3-year, $41 million healthy eating program aimed at kids. Now, as one of the healthier options in the fast food market, this is a super aggressive marketing campaign. It's called Playtime, powered by veggies, and it goes head to head with McDonald's Happy Meals. It goes head to head with the Burger King meals. It goes head to head with whatever Wendy's is offering. But both at a product development level and at a marketing level, their commitment to promoting healthier choices is impressive in the sort of 360-degree approach that they've taken. They've changed their nutritional profile in terms of lowering calories, lowering sodium, and lowering trans fats. Their meals now provide fruit options, vegetable options, and low or non-fat milk or water. So from a product development perspective, they've really made that fit to the commitment, and at the same time, from a pricing strategy perspective, they've kept their prices stable, despite the fact that they have moved to a healthier menu plan and healthier options, which oftentimes leads companies to increasing their prices rather than maintaining prices. The messaging on their meal bags are all toward communicating healthier eating. They have implemented training among their staff to get kids to, choose the apple out of the apple barrel, and some of those kinds of things. And of course, $41 million in media spend speaks tremendously about their commitment to this, as well as to some of the standards that they hold themselves to. Nevertheless, so here's the twist. So nevertheless, their kids' marketing program and their promotional efforts continue to lean on many of the tried and true tactics of marketing and advertising to kids. So, for example, they continue to do things like tie their meal bags to really popular movie characters or IP characters, that are based on toys, that are based on games. They continue to give, to have the toy in the bag that's tied to the character or tied to the app or tied to the promotion or tied to the game or whatever it might be, to catch children's attention and to motivate them, to get their parents to take them there, and to on multiple occasions, as they can now collect these things as well. The most recent kids commercial from Subway uses the highly popular Avengers characters from the newly released Avengers movie to promote the Avengers 3D play kits inside their kid meal bags, and of course encouraging kids to come back, X number of times to collect all 6 or whatever. Here's the ad. So a great cross promotion between the fast food chain, the movie. We're promoting the toy in the meal. We've got some nice healthy food options that moms, especially these millennial moms, are feeling good about. We're powered by veggies. Subway is not a client of ours, so this is just an example of the twist in the debate. Because there are people who say, well, if we need to use every tool in the toolbox to promote healthy eating as kids. The fact of the matter is, the reality is that kids today, we have more obese kids in this country than ever before. We've got more kids with type 2 diabetes than ever before. And if you can use the tools in the toolbox to promote healthy behaviors, then the debate takes a new twist. It takes a new turn. And of course, how marketers use these tools of marketing to target kids is probably going to remain a subject of great concern and controversy in this country. We are one, unlike you have countries in the in Europe, countries like Norway and Sweden that don't allow any advertising at all to kids under 12, none at all. And then you have Great Britain, the UK, who they have, there's certain industries and certain types of commercials that you can that they're allowed to advertise to children, and then you have the U.S. where really companies are asked to self-regulate in terms of advertising to kids. How, whether or not, again, there's a great debate about how well they've done that in terms of regulating themselves as well. That's another controversial subject. But again, and this whole debate is probably going to remain, a controversy for a while. One thing for sure, if you're in the business of selling to kids, then you need to know what they want. You need to understand how they think and what marketing tactics they actually do respond to in what environments and on what platforms. It used to be that marketing to kids was all about the 15 or the 30-second ad. I did it. And there's no doubt, there's no doubt that TV advertising, TV watching and TV advertising is still king. But TV viewing is shifting from live viewing to viewing online, to viewing on mobile devices, and viewing by watching DVR recordings that have occurred, a couple of days earlier, a couple hours earlier, or whatever. And not surprisingly, as this shift continues to occur, what we've seen is an explosion, really, in new ways for kids to be exposed to advertising. So today, it's all about online advertising. It's all about social media marketing. It's about, I'm going to talk through some of these specifically. It's about branded websites. It's mobile apps. It's user-created content. These are things like videos that kids are creating themselves and that spread virally through social media like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So user-related content is a really interesting phenomenon that we're really beginning to see have some impact and some traction in the marketing to kids arena. In-app advertising. So you're playing an app game and all of a sudden, whoop! There's a guy walking down the sidewalk in the game with one of those sandwich boards on it with something from Pop-Tarts on one side and M&Ms on the other. So in-app advertising is a new phenomenon. What we call immersive websites, and of course product placement, which is not a new phenomenon, but it is continues to be a very powerful phenomenon. And here's something that's really interesting, and we've all heard about it, but now it's really getting zoomed in on kids. This whole behavior and location mobile targeting of kids. You've got more kids carrying cell phones and smartphones. You have to go really deep inside your cell phone to turn off location services. I mean, it's not, you think you do it, when you get to, but there's like a couple of other levels underneath there. So this whole location mobile marketing is really interesting. Here's an example of sort of how some of the, how it's happening. So for certain games that kids play, whether they're console games or they're games on their tablets or their app games, there are certain games who will give kids points which of course, I mean, you know, in a lot of games, what you're playing to accumulate points, because points get you to the next level. Points get you to unlock, you know, the next door or the next tunnel or the next treehouse or whatever, you know, whatever it might be. But so these games give kids points when they go into stores and they scan something in the store, or they give kids points for the game when they scan something at the point of purchase on the retail shelf. So again, it's it's all, you know, it's fascinating, you know. But that's the reward. The reward is, you know, I go into this store and I scan this thing and I get, you know, 500 points on my app game, you know. Or I go into this store and I scan the display box and at the you know, Lego Friends aisle in the Toys R Us, and I get this. So some very interesting, this whole phenomenon of behavior and location, mobile targeting of kids is very interesting. Let me give you a few more examples of what kid marketers are doing these days, that again sort of open up this whole area and give us some sort of insight into just how deep they are going into maybe our pockets. But anyway, today there's a lot of products that are incorporated into advertising and into programming that kids are watching, or into games that kids are playing. You know, Coca-Cola does not advertise directly to kids. However, kids see thousands and thousands of brand impressions from Coca-Cola all the time, because Coke is one of the brands that is, their product placement strategy is second to none. They are, you watch a movie, you watch a TV show, you look at, you will always see, I mean, you know, years and years ago, from the time who was the British guy, always wore the t-shirts, you know, what was his name on American Idol? Simon Cowell, right. I mean, from way back then, when who was the other, I don't remember who they were, but even now, you will always see a glass, a bottle, or a can of Coke in front of the American Idol judges. American Idol is watched by millions of kids and their parents. It's one of those co-viewing kinds of programs. Now, of course, co-viewing becomes less and less as kids get older, but then they're viewing on their iPads in their rooms by themselves, as opposed to in their living room with their parents. But they're still getting all of these impressions embedded into programs, embedded into games. Ads for movies show up in app games. So for instance, or app games are now built around parts of the movie or characters from the movie. So for example, when Zynga, it's a very popular app, it's called Draw Something, and they just came out a little while, last year, I think, with Draw Something 2. 2.0. And what they did was when that game was launched, kids were, they had partnered with Despicable Me 2. So, and kids were engaging with words sponsored by Despicable Me 2. And then the marketing team also introduced this whole program around 2 million the 2 million minion, I can't say this, the 2 million minion challenge, where in the game it would unlock a free color pack upgrade, which of course kids are all about upgrades these days. So it would unlock this free color pack upgrade when the game reached 2 million minion drawings. So you can see right here the partnership, you know, the challenge, the motivation and the payoff, so to speak, in this, you know, and again, you know, these partnerships and how complex they are and how deep they go is really quite astounding. I talked a few minutes ago about TV advertising is still king, and that is true, but it is shifting, and it's shifting fast. It's shifting fast. Online advertising is just pervasive. It's everywhere, and it's a fundamentally different kind of exposure than TV advertising. It's interactive, it's immersive, it's built around data. It's actually built around data about kids interests, about where kids live, about where kids shop, and around demographics associated with family and income and ethnicity and jobs and education and all of those kinds of things. The entertainment and the advertising industries are thoroughly intertwined with one another these days. Advergaming is also not a new phenomenon, but one which continues to sort of grow and get more powerful and find new ways to connect with kids. So advergaming is the phenomenon where kids play games with branded products in these heavily branded environments. And this is a very common online tactic. This was a great. I think this is a really interesting example. This is the Fruit Loops bloopers website. Fruit Loops. Everybody's, of course, you know, knows the Fruit Loops name, and bloopers is one of their newer cereals. Anyway, at this website, you can see this is a screenshot just of the website. You can play games, you can do activities. They have just certain ads. You can run a wave. You can. They even have. There's a co-sponsorship with Angry Birds Space. So you can click on Angry Bird Space, takes you to a new website where in Angry Bird Space you visit Bloopersphere, which of course ties back to Fruit Loops bloopers. So everything is just so interconnected. But what's the really interesting thing is this. So you play this game. I played. I didn't do very well. I only got 354 bloopers. But I played this game. I think it was this one, yeah, the comic catch-up. So after the game was over, your score comes up, right? Congratulations. You know, kids always want to be affirmed. Congratulations. You've caught 354 bloopers. And then it says, you've found the hidden video. And here we've got our, we know what to do there. We're going to click on that. And it says, watch to get more playing time. You click that, and boom, you go directly to the Fruit Loops bloopers commercial, the 30-second TV spot online now. So you can see the way they pull you through the website to get you where they want you to be, which is to be engaged with their commercial, to be interested in their product, to hopefully put something into your mind that helps you remember that when you're with your mom and you're on the cereal aisle and you say, you know, I think I'd like to try those Fruit Loop bloopers. I mean, let's face it, folks, this is the world we live in. Companies are out, you know, are here to make money, and this is how it happens in some ways. Barbie is another just great example. Barbie has struggled actually for 3 years. Barbie has struggled with declining sales. It actually only had a little blip at the end of 2014 with the Barbie Frozen doll. Not surprisingly. But even now, even in the first half of 2015, Barbie's sales are lower than they continue to decline. I think a lot of that has to do with these millennial mothers. Some of you out there represent those, but I think a lot of that has to do with that. But Barbie, despite her declining sales, she has one of the best branded websites you can find for girls. I mean, I'm going to walk over here look at this. You can play games, and then a whole bunch of games come up. You can be super, life in the dream house, trailers, bloopers. We can download stuff. We can download apps. We can download movies. We can download things to color in, coloring pages, wallpaper, ebooks. We can read and send them to our Nook, or to our e-reader or whatever. Of course, we can shop. We can shop. We are unable to connect to the internet, but that's fine. I made my point. Barbie, you can find anything, but what it goes to show you is it's this incredibly branded universe that the girls are immersed in. And using social media marketing is also in the game in a very, very big way. During the last Olympics, there was a Twitter campaign by Gatorade aimed at kids. And what it did was Gatorade created this microsite, which is like a smaller, specific website just for the purpose of this particular campaign. So they created this microsite where kids could tweet about their involvement in sports, as well as, sports is so big. There's sports aspirations, there's sports motivations, what their hopes and their dreams, that all surround sports. They were also, was also really interesting, they were also encouraged to invite a friend, which is the whole refer a friend tactic that a number of marketers and websites still use. Again, that's a very controversial subject. But they were they were encouraged to invite their friends to do the same thing with a special hashtag, and then obviously to drive traffic to the microsite. Their tweets were they were retweeted, reposted, and the result was over 11 million social media impressions around Gatorade during that time frame. That's incredible. 11 million social media impressions. One other thing, one other interesting trend I wanted to talk about is this whole trend toward branded experiences, and the whole idea of advertising that turns into content, or experiences with a brand that turn into content for the promotion of the actual brand itself. Here's a great example. This is about to happen just in next week on May 21st. Tom's, the brand, the shoe brand, Tom's. They hold this annual event called One Day Without Shoes. If you know Tom's, you know that for every time you buy a pair of shoes, they give shoes to a child somewhere in the world who does not have a pair of shoes. That's been sort of one of the sort of core values, equities of the company. But they hold this annual event now called One Day Without Shoes. The goal is to build awareness around global hunger, around education, around health and nutrition for children in third world countries. The campaign actually encourages kids and children to go without shoes for a day and feel what it's like to go barefoot. And what happens is that kids of all ages begin to, they post videos, they post YouTubes of themselves walking everywhere without shoes. And at the same time, they're tweeting their feelings about other kids in other parts of the world who are impoverished and la 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 la. Well, this year there's a brand new twist, which is great because what it's doing, it's taking advantage of one of the big hot apps out there, which is Instagram. I mean, everybody, Instagram is just whoosh, all over the place these days. But now, when you Instagram, I want everybody to do this right after we leave here. When you Instagram a picture of your bare feet with the hashtag without shoes, Tom's, regardless of whether you've purchased a pair of shoes or not, gives a pair of shoes to a child somewhere in the world without them. So it's a great example of socially responsible marketing, but it's also a great example of advertising that turns into content. This is now not just an advertising campaign. This is content. This is about, I'm sorry?
It's an experience.
It's an experience, exactly. So it's just fascinating these are just the tip of the iceberg, some of the examples. We're obviously running over on time, so let me just sort of sum it up for you in just a few words. What we've given you is sort of just a taste of this current generation, how they develop, and the diverse array of strategies that marketers are using to reach them. From our perspective, some of here are three of the most important characteristics of advertising to kids. These are the three that we think are the most important. You have to know who they are. You have to recognize that they're constantly changing, and that means that you have to always be working to increase your level of kid knowledge. In order to create successful products and effective marketing programs, you have to understand and respect how they develop and how they're different both by age group and by gender. If you do these two things vigilantly, you have a much better chance of developing a relevant message for kids. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. You need to have a relevant message that means something, that's important to children in order for them to care about it. And then you have to deliver that message. And you have to deliver it from multiple directions on multiple platforms, all at the same time, because you never know where you're going to find them. So thank you very much. My thanks to my colleague, Rebecca, and thanks to all of you. It was just lovely to be here.